Hey guys, it's Eric from foundersbeta.com, and I'm so excited to have Brent from Goodlawyer.ca. Thanks so much for
You
joining.
much appreciated, Eric. Excited to be here, my friend.
Yeah, so can you tell us a little bit about yourself and about Goodlawyer as well?
For sure. So my name is Brett, and I'm one of the co-founders and the CEO of a company called Goodlawyer. As Eric said, you can find us at goodlawyer.ca, and I am a corporate lawyer by trade. I did the whole law school, business school thing, practiced in a big corporate law firm for 4.5 years, and left about 2.5 years ago to work full time on Goodlawyer and really trying to build something that was better for obviously the entrepreneurs and startups that we're trying to help, but also for the lawyers that are providing services. And by making their lives a lot easier through the platform that takes care of a lot of the marketing and admin, we're able to drive the cost down for entrepreneurs and startups and leave everybody with a bit more of a smile on their face at the end of the day.
Nice, nice. Tell us a little bit about the early days. How did this idea even come about? Like, what was it you were working? You're like, there's got to be a solution online for maybe for entrepreneurs, or what was it like?
Yeah, well, I'll give you the medium long version, which was first year law school. I went to my old coffee shop. I went to the University of Alberta, and the business school and the law school were very close to each other. So I had a coffee
Right.
guy that I went in undergrad, and I went back during law school. He remembered me, and we had a good chat, good catch up. And then I mentioned that I was in law school now, and he got very serious. This old guy named Mo, and he was just like, "Be a good lawyer. Be a good
Right.
lawyer." And I literally went back to class, and it was just like hey, he incepted me. So I bought a bunch of Good Lawyer domains, and then just sat on it for, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years. We finished law school, worked at the firm, and yeah, about 4 years in, um, you know, building Good Lawyer and whatever it was going to look like was always percolating. I learned about this huge access crisis when I was in law school as well, which
Right.
didn't make any sense because at the same time, it felt like there wasn't enough lawyer jobs. So you got 77% of legal needs going unmet. I learned that from the research. And then just from the experience of being in law school, it was very apparent that internally in the profession, it felt like there was too many of us, too many lawyers, not enough jobs. So it just
Right.
felt like this system had broken down because we're the only ones allowed to provide the service. How could there be too many of us if only, we're helping a quarter of the entrepreneurs and the people out there?
Right. So what was your next step after, you had the domain? Did you have a conversation with with friends or, try to build that early team? What was it like?
Yeah, so we started building Good Lawyer out of my apartment in the shadows while we were still working at the firm.
Right.
Uh, my first co-founder, who actually has gone back to private practice
Mhm.
now, still involved in a light way, but he departed about a year and a half ago, making room for my other two co-founders, our CTO and our chief product officer, Parker and Tom. Um, so I just got lucky. I started the company with someone that I was working with. Did a road mapping workshop because I'd never built a startup before,
Right, right.
and then was just honestly dumb luck to get just such an incredible CTO in Parker, and
Mhm.
then Tom, who really grew into the chief product officer role. And now it was really the three of us that got Goodlawyer off the ground, and since then we've been able to add some tremendous teammates to this growing
Right,
squad.
right on. So how did you manage to like convince them to join like on board? Because I mean, it's just a startup, right? Like, there's no product, there's no revenue, right? How did you go about
Yeah.
be like, hey,
So
this is something people might need, right?
totally. And actually my first meeting with Parker, who was introduced to me from one of my good friends who was his older brother. So I grew up with his older brother, who's now our director of customer experience, Tay.
Mhm.
And I'd been talking, I was living in Vancouver at the time, spending a lot of time with Taylor. And I was just talking about this Good Lawyer thing constantly. And,
Right.
I knew when I got back to Calgary, I was going to start building this thing. And he's like, you got to talk to my brother, man. Like, he's working
Right.
at the gym now, but he was working at an energy company building their software product for the previous
Right.
3 years. He's a workaholic. He's brilliant. And so when I got back to Calgary, I met Parker in a coffee shop, and I thought I was coming in to interview him, and little did I know he was coming in to interview me.
Oh, really?
And
Okay.
it was
Right,
for him, it was, is this worth my time?
right,
And fortunately it was. And,
right,
the next week he kicked off starting to wireframe the product with, I was working at the firm all day, coming home, working with Parker till midnight on wireframes. And then we just repeat that cycle for about 9 months until it was time to leave the big firm, because I think
right.
Parker was going to have an aneurysm if we didn't push out the product and get some testers.
Right, right. So that sounds like you moved pretty fast, right? From that stage till like your early launch, or how much did it take you to even get there?
Yeah, I'd say probably from like day one working with Parker to launching our first MVP into the
Mhm.
market was probably about 9 months.
Oh, okay, right, right.
And that would have been, I quit the firm 2019, I think, in February. And then
Mhm.
we would have launched it in April, and then had a major pivot at the end of 2019.
Mhm.
Again, one of my original co-founders, and this comes back to why the right documentation is so important. So you have that effectively, that kind of prenuptial arrangement with
Right,
co-founders
right,
in case they leave, right? Because building a
right,
startup takes a long time and it takes a lot of risk and a lot of
right,
effort, and it's not for everybody. So
right, right, right.
making sure your legal ducks in a row are super important for that reason alone. But Steve went back to private practice.
Mhm.
We had sort of a redistribution of equity amongst the co-founders. Tom and Parker became much more focal points, and we relaunched with a focus on these microservices and an emphasis on entrepreneurs and startups in
Right.
January 2020. And then the pandemic hit, and we've been growing at a pretty rapid pace month over month for the past 18 months.
Nice, nice. So talking about like, co-founder agreements and like try to put things together, do you have any tips for our audience that, at least they should have something in written, hopefully, right? Like, or any tips that might come across your mind?
Absolutely. You know, they they say it about investors, and it's even more true when it comes to co-founders
Right,
who, even if they're not bringing cash in, they're investing their lives.
right.
So it really is kind of like a business marriage. And
Hmm.
you got to be prepared for the ups and the downs. And ideally, you need to be prepared and have those tough conversations at the very beginning.
Hmm.
What happens if someone changes their mind? If again, a startup can
Right,
take a lot longer than you expected to before it blows up. And,
right,
you got to make sure that everybody's on the same page. And if someone deviates or changes their mind, or, wants to start a family and needs a more secure job to
right,
do so, then,
right,
you need that's okay. But you need to have the written agreements in place to facilitate that. Make sure that if someone's leaving, then, maybe they've earned a little bit of equity, but they're not owning a third, a half of the company that they're no longer going to be involved in. So we were able to cut a deal, but
mhm,
if we weren't, Goodlawyer could have really kind of died at that moment,
right,
because we didn't have all of the really proper agreements in place, because
right,
we were baby lawyers at that time and we thought we knew what we were doing, but we
right.
hadn't planned for one of us to leave. So again, we were able to make a deal and everyone left pretty satisfied. But it's one of those things that the earlier you can think about it and have those tough conversations with your co-founders
Mhm.
and have mechanisms to deal with someone leaving, the better off you're going to be and the more attractive you're going to be to investors, because they know these risks exist.
Right, right. That makes sense. So how about like, of course, have everything, everything in place. How about like things such as like, how do you even like, move on or like try to recruit potentially others? Like it must be a challenge, right? Because like we've seen it with startups too, sometimes like people come and go, right? But how do you deal with that kind of a challenge as well? Like making sure like, you have the right team, but also recruiting as well. Maybe if there's potential skills gap.
Mm-hmm. So the recruiting thing, I think we've done really well,
Right.
and maybe a little ad hoc. We've done some classic sort of job postings and then a bunch of interviews and brought a few folks on
Hmm.
that way. Especially for interns, I always really push startups in the early days, look for these internship opportunities.
Right. Right.
We've hired a ton of business students and MBAs and law students who have been fantastic contributors and, you know,
Right.
very affordable because they're, 50% subsidized. So that's how we brought on a lot of the newer folks more recently. But prior to that, most of the people on the team are, either my connection for a long time ago or maybe one away from someone that I've known for a long time. So we've been able to build this team of really smart people, many of whom have known each other for a very long time. And then the important piece that I think exists for us is I made sure that all of those people, I call them the dirty dozen at Goodlawyer. Like there's a core kind of group of full-timers. And again, some of the interns are getting kind of becoming part of that group as some of them stick around full-time. But there's about a dozen of us that have been here and will be here for a very long time. And everybody has a significant equity taste. So everybody has a fairly significant ownership stake in this company. And, if it goes to the moon like we hope it does, they're going to see a massive financial reward. But beyond that, they're part of this. They have that owner mentality. This is a team, a family. And, from my perspective, people are invested both because they literally have investment in the company, but also because they have all these other sort of strings, like, Tay and Parker, our brothers, Tom and Katie, our partners, Josh and Zach, I've known since I was like 10. So we've got this like co-mixing of really smart friends and people that are sort of extensions of them. And I think that has brought a lot of commitment, fun, and togetherness to the company that I think is hard to find.
Right, because I think it's all about incentives as well for like people early on, because early on it's a lot of grinding out there, right? Because maybe it's not exactly a rocket ship yet, right? Trying to get things going. So really love your approach of like giving team members ownership and having them taking initiatives, and I think that really helps.
My one other tip as well. Again, a lot of the folks on the Goodlawyer team I've known for a very long time, and almost everyone on Goodlawyer started in a smaller capacity. Started with a little project, started like working it as a side hustle off their desk while they were still working at a firm or for the university in one case.
Right.
Or came on for like a limited engagement, like our head of growth Grant, who came on to do our paid advertising, and that just snowballed and grew into now he's the head of growth. And Josh was working off the side of his desk, now he's our chief legal. Zach was doing our grants off the side of his desk, now he's doing that full time with some other activities. So with all of these people, even Tom started, he came and did our logo, and now he's our chief product officer. And starting with a small sort of test project, which is still a productive activity for the company, but that's how we've done it. Is everybody kind of starts with a smaller engagement, and if it goes really well, they gel with the culture, then we start to grow that engagement. And like I said, a lot of these people I think are going to be here for a very, very long time.
Right. That makes sense. So talk about more tips for startups in terms of legal. How early should they look into their legal structure? So like whether they incorporate or whether they go other routes. Any tips there?
Yeah. So quick plug: goodlawyer.ca/class. That's like our master class that we came out with. It's 5 YouTube videos. They're hosted on the website. They're like 3.5 minutes each. Just quick bangers to kind of alert you to legal issues that you should be aware of as a founder or entrepreneur.
Right.
You should really be starting to think about the legal side of things. As soon as you're I like to stay serious about it. And from my perspective, that really means when it's beyond just an idea in your head, and when you're starting to bring in stakeholders other than yourself. So it's just you, no problem. You probably don't need legal yet. If you're just percolating on some ideas, you could even do some, light customer discovery research without having to worry about any of the legal stuff. But as soon as you're bringing in co-founders, as soon as you're bringing in customers, partners, investors, you need to get your legal stuff sorted, because now you need to start delineating rights and responsibilities between the various stakeholders. And it's a lot cheaper and easier to do that at the front than try to go back in time. Like we had to go back in time and cut a deal with my original co-founder because we didn't have that set out. And
Right.
luckily, I love negotiating, so it's okay. But the earlier you can set out those rights, once you have more stakeholders beyond yourself coming in, the better. Absolutely.
Right, right. Makes sense. So what mistakes have you seen, like, so far with startups make when it comes to their legal?
I mean, it totally depends on what their ambitions are. One of the ones we've definitely seen is startups looking to raise investor money, just running into roadblocks because they don't have, their corporate records in order. They don't have some of the, basic necessities. It's unclear what ownership looks like in the company. Again, there's no mechanism to claw back ownership if a co-founder leaves. That's always a big issue. I'd say those are the kind of biggest stumbling blocks I see. And even when it comes to startups in the very early days, for us, we hired our now CTO Parker off a government grant. And you see a lot of startups trying to do something like that, but they're not incorporated. And some of those grants require you to be incorporated for a year or two before you're eligible. So again, one of those things where it's always a cost benefit analysis when it comes to doing your legal work properly. But if you want to be eligible for a lot of those grants, getting incorporated right away is one of those sort of hurdles that you need to jump over if you want to have access to that money.
Right, great. So I always ask the guests on Founders Beta, what's the best advice you can give to our audience? It could be building a startup, it could be philosophy, anything in general.
I think it all comes back, honestly, to finding purpose. We're very much a purpose-driven organization. I had many years where I didn't feel like I had that purpose when I was working at the firm, and I wanted to be a professional soccer player growing up, and it felt like there was a big hiatus in the middle once I realized that dream was gonna die before discovering this Goodlawyer opportunity. But really, I think you got to find something that you love, something that you find purpose in doing, and then you just got to chase it. I think a lot of people just in life generally, sit on the sidelines, just kind of go with the flow and don't just grab the bull by the horns and go after something because it's scary. I'm so happy doing what I'm doing and feel so much purpose. And, now we're at a place where some people are noticing us, and it's a little more exciting than the 2.5 years on my kitchen table. But those years were amazing too, because we had this purpose, we had this great collection of people around this problem, and getting to work with a bunch of your friends on a cool problem that gives you a lot of purpose is the funnest thing, the coolest thing that I've ever kind of figured out what to do with my life. So I would say find purpose and chase it with people you love.
Awesome. So for our audience that want to learn more about your startup, where can they go?
Well, it sounds like we've got a pretty sweet deal on the Founders Beta
yes, we
deal
do.
page.
That's right.
So any of you lucky folks listening, you can thank Eric for $150 off our Goodlawyer Pro annual membership. That's unlimited 15-minute advice sessions, a discount on everything else on Goodlawyer, and a bunch of other perks like VIP legal concierge and a community of other entrepreneurs to engage with, even sell to. And then there's also, if you feel like taking it for a spin, correct me if I'm wrong, Eric, but there's a free promo code just to go in and get a totally free advice session if you feel like getting some affordable, or in this case, free legal advice.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think this would be very useful for our audience, especially founders that are just starting out, on a low budget. So, thanks to you for partnering with us. So I think that is a wrap. So thanks so much again for coming out. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate you supporting Founders Beta and partnering and providing these great legal solutions for our members that they can connect. We're looking forward to spreading the word. So.
Yeah, lawyers shouldn't be scary, and hopefully, the folks that check us out at goodlawyer.ca will see that they don't have to be. And love what you're doing with Founders Beta, Eric. Keep it up, and can't wait to get more involved with you guys in the future.
Awesome. Thanks again.
Okay.
Okay, done. All right. So, hey, so that's done. I'll start recording soon. But hey, thanks again for taking the time today. So I think that was really helpful.
Thanks so much for letting me tell the story, my friend. It's always a pleasure doing that, and I like your energy.
Awesome, awesome. Hey, I'll send you the video. And by the way, I'm writing this piece. We have we have this Calgary member startup as well. We're gonna coordinate this new piece, like 20 hottest Calgary startups. So I'd love to feature you there.
We're definitely at the top 20 hottest startups, my friend. Sure.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm gonna send you like some details. I'm looking to release these sometimes in August. Yeah, in the meantime, you know, if anything comes across what you need, let me know. Announcement, updates. Feel free to tell Grant to send me any content you like us to share. So and he's also on our Facebook group, so he can share anytime as well. I think would be useful. But I'll send you the video soon, and then with the transcript. So
sounds good.
Awesome.
You said you're in Toronto, right?
Yes, I am. Anything you need here?
Well, I'll be out there for 3 or 4 weeks.
Oh, no way.
In
Okay.
September, and maybe dipping into a little bit of October. So when I'm out there, we definitely gotta tee it up for a beer or something.
Yeah, for sure. Come by. Love to meet and help you expand in Toronto as well.
Totally. That's why we're coming. We gotta make sure everybody in Toronto knows about Goodlawyer by the end of the fall.
Because honestly, the startup scene here is on fire versus like, you know, I mean, we've seen other places too, like Vancouver or other places. Not as big here anyway. You know it, right? Like,
oh yeah. I got my eyes on Toronto, my friend.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a massive market for you. But hopefully we can, once we get this word out, hopefully we can drive a lot of traffic and help you get the word out. Because honestly, I love what you're doing. So, and it's really meaningful for entrepreneurs, especially. So, yeah.
Well, that's all we're trying to do. Grease the wheels of entrepreneurship, my friend. Get the lawyers out of the way a little bit. You know?
Exactly. Anyway, thanks again. And please let me know if you need anything. We'll chat later.
Cheers.
Okay,
yeah.
cheers.
Take care.